Similar to the last session, for those who were on it, there's not going to be a big PowerPoint presentation this afternoon. What I'm going to do, assuming everything works well on the technology, is share my screen on an iPad and walk you through what you can do with iCloud on the iPad. Now, there are similar things that you can do on an Apple Mac. Things that are being stored to iCloud on the Mac are very similar, but I'm not going to look at that today. So without more ado, I'm going to go to sharing screen. So just bear with me for a second. I'll pick up the iPad. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the screen of my iPad. If someone, one or two could stick their thumbs up to just check you can see that screen, that's good. That makes me feel more confident. And you'll see moving around the screen a little red circle. And it's showing me where you would tap with your finger if you had a real iPad. So I'm just going to go back to the home screen for a second. And there's the home screen of this iPad. And the app that we're in is the Settings app. So I'll just click the Settings app, and that's where we were a second or two. Now, the interesting thing about iCloud on an iPad is that there's really not the same sense of backing up files that you get on a PC with Google Drive or with OneDrive. But the iPad is doing a very similar thing. It's storing stuff in the cloud that helps it operate. And to find out what you can do, you go to the Settings app and you go over to the top of the Settings app, and you'll see over here there's an option called iCloud. And this is where we decide what we're actually going to use iCloud for. And this is as iCloud. You can see it's not using very much storage. Up the top here, it's using about ½ gig of the 5 gig you get free. On my personal iPad, you would see a lot more storage being used, and I've run off the end of my 5 gig, and I'm having to pay Apple for some extra money. So the first and most important thing that you do with iCloud is well down the list of options. I'm just scrolling down the list, and there's one here called iCloud Backup. Now, in all of our iPad courses, we advise you to turn on iCloud Backup. And it's really simple. You go down to that setting, you make sure the green slider is set on. If it's not, you click it, and that's it. And then we'll just go in there. I think it says it. It says it will automatically back up data such as your accounts, documents, etc. when the iPad is connected to power, locked, and on Wi-Fi. So that basically means if you go to bed at night, you stick in the power cord to charge your iPad, and it's connected to your Wi-Fi. Without you doing anything, it's going to back up the iPad to iCloud. Now, you won't be able to see where it sits in iCloud. There's nowhere that you can go and log in and say, oh, there's my backup, but you know it's there. And in the event that you have a problem with your iPad, or in the event that you get a new iPad, you log in with your Apple ID, put in your password, it says, would you like to restore from the iCloud backup? And it does that without you doing anything at all. It just quietly gets on with it. And the effect is that having got a new iPad, for example, all of the apps that you had in the old iPad will be brought down and installed on the new iPad, and you'll be off and working. without very much effort. So backup is the simplest and the one that you really ought to be using. And I would hope that everyone is. Now, the next thing which most people are going to use is photos. And you'll see here they have apps using photos. Because of the way that the iPad works, rather than you looking at a file on a drive, the apps all hide that from you. And the Photos app's no exception. If we go and look at the settings, we've got a setting here called iCloud Photos, which will automatically upload and store all your photos and videos in iCloud so that you can look at them later. And we've got two options below that. One is optimize iCloud storage or download and keep originals. Now, for those of you who perhaps bought your iPad a few years ago, you might have got 16 gig as my wife's has, or maybe 32 gig. And if you get excited about taking pictures, you might find you get to the stage where your iPad is full of pictures. And in fact, you've taken so many pictures, they won't all fit at one time. If you select this optimize iPad storage, when you take a picture, the original is squirted up to iCloud. And then when you want to look at it, it gets pulled back down. But while you're not looking at it, you have just a thumbnail of the picture stored on the iPad, and you've got all that space back. Now, if you bought a brand spanking new iPad with lots and lots of storage, maybe 128 gig, then you can probably download and keep the originals. But it's an option and it helps. It has, in the case of the first iPad we bought, has helped keep it functional and useful for the last 5 years, because we have run out of storage, but it still gets lots of photos and we can look at them. The only downside, of course, is you have to be connected to the internet to be able to pull them down when you want to look at them, if you haven't been looking at them recently. If you've been looking at them recently, they're probably down there. So they keep shuffling around and you don't have to think about it. The iOS operating system does it in the background. Now there's a setting here which is historic, and it's upload to my photo stream. Before Apple came up with the idea of storing all of your photos in the cloud, they had a feature called Photo Stream, which would allow you to store the last 1,000 photos that you'd taken and share them between devices. Nowadays, that's been totally overtaken by iCloud Photos. And finally, there's this option to do with shared albums, which lets you create an album in the Photos app and then share that album with someone else by sending them an email with a link to the album. So instead of uploading or sending them by email, all of the photos you took in your last trip to somewhere, would that we could make trips to anywhere, you can send them a link to your album. So let's go back and look at other things. So that's photos. It's really worth using, and I'd advise it for everyone. The next one down is mail, and it's a peculiar one. You would think that that's telling you to store your mail in iCloud. In point of fact, what it does is it gives you a new email address. It gives you an email address at iCloud.com. So unless you don't want a new email address, then I would leave that one off. It's not necessary to do it. It can be useful as an alternative to something like Gmail, because like Gmail, it's an email address where you can log into it from anywhere in the world comfortably on your iPad, unlike, say, an Optus email address, which doesn't work very well if you're not on the Optus network. But for people who've got Gmail addresses, definitely not something I'd worry too much about. The next two are really quite useful. Contact says that if you put a contact in on your iPad, and you've selected that contact use iCloud, the contact will be uploaded to iCloud. And if you've got an iPhone, say, it will be downloaded to your iPhone as long as you've set both to store contacts in the cloud. Really quite useful. Calendars is pretty similar. You can keep your calendar on your iPad, say, and it will be visible on your iPhone. Very useful for people who have iPads and iPhones. And much the same thing goes for reminders and notes. It gives you the ability to create something on one device, upload it to the cloud, and see it on the other. And it also has the benefit, of course, if you've created it and saved it to the cloud, and you change your iPad, you get all these calendar entries, contacts entries, notes and reminders that you used to have on the old iPad. And that's really worthwhile. I've got messages set off here because this is a club iPad, but on my own iPad, I have messages set on. And it means that I can see messages on my iPad or my iPhone. And someone sends me a message, it pops up on the phone. At the same time, it pops up on the iPad, which can be quite handy. It can also be a bit disconcerting. It pops up on the Mac, and you never quite get away from people sending you messages, but it's useful. Now, as far as the next ones are concerned, what you're doing with Safari is you're saving your favorites. We all have favorites that we're going to go to from time to time. And if we save them to Safari, if we save the Safari favorites up to the cloud, then we can have them on all our devices, and we can have the same favorites on all our devices. Now, not surprisingly, Stocks is a similar sort of thing. If you use the Stocks app to follow your investments, then you save it to iCloud, and there it is on all your devices. Game Center is probably not something that most of us use anymore, but if you were into playing games with people, then it's good to have the same information on multiple devices. The story is pretty much the same with all of the apps. It's if you want to use the same app on another device, it's good to have all that setup that you did for that app saved somewhere so that you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And if you're a Siri user, then that's definitely worthwhile, because when you send up your voice message or you speak to Siri, they're saving little bits that allow them to interpret your voice correctly. And so having it learn your voice on one device and have it work on another is really worthwhile, because it takes it a little while. Now let's look at keychain. Now, I've actually got this turned off, but if, for example, you don't have some other form of password manager, Keychain is an opportunity to save your passwords securely in the cloud. Now, they're saved in a way such that Apple cannot see those passwords. But instead of you having everything written down, say, in a little notebook, you can have it up in the cloud. And that means that if something happens, you can get hold of your passwords quite easily. Okay, and we've talked about backup. iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is the closest that Apple gets to storing files. In fact, it's not just the closest, it is storing files. Apple, in the latest releases in iOS, have introduced the ability to store a file in iCloud Drive so that it can be available between, say, an iPad and a Mac. And so you can work on something in a Mac and then pick up the file later. I actually use iCloud Drive for things like tickets. If I get a PDF with a ticket that you've got to scan somewhere, I'll save it to iCloud Drive when it comes in, in an email, and then it's available if I want to open it up on a phone and scan it. And really, even as we work down the list, books can store what you're reading. Now, they don't store books that you buy from Apple because they're actually already stored up on the Apple Store. But if you load into your books folder a PDF of something that you want to keep, often we'll get instruction books that go with new bits of equipment. I tend to store those as PDFs so that I can access them on an electronic device rather than go looking for the paper copy of the instruction book. And we might skip over shortcuts because as yet I haven't found a great use for the shortcuts. I'm sure one day I might. Reminders, we talk about on the iPad courses. And here we have things that you would wonder, why are we storing? We're storing the information about Google Drive on iCloud. That's really storing information so that when we set up a new device, we can get to it and set it up easily. And all of the stuff that we put effort into will be stored. Similarly with OneNote, which is a Microsoft app, I'm letting it store on OneDrive as well so that it can be set up. So this is probably all a bit sort of, not much to see, unfortunately, with this. However, let's have a look and see. I'm going to go over and I'm going to change what I'm sharing and share my desktop with you. So I'll just stop that share and I'm going to go and share my desktop and have a look at iCloud in the cloud. Okay, and we'll just go a step back. So when we look, you can go on a, you can't do this on an iPad or a phone, but on a PC, which doesn't have to be an Apple PC, you can go to a site called iCloud.com, put in your Apple ID and your password, and then log in, and you can see your photos. So we've not loaded too many up there, but there are some photos that I've loaded up from an iPad, and it's up in the cloud. And I can look at those whether or not I've got an Apple device. I can also have a look at my contacts. There's kind of boring contacts on this one because they're all to do with AvPals. But if you had your real contacts, it's reassuring to be able to go and find them on the cloud if you need to. And even more important might be to find your diary. If you use the diary, then to be able to look at it in the cloud, and there's no entries in the diary, so it's fairly boring, you can go to the cloud and see your calendar from anywhere. And this is the new drive where you can actually look at folders. To be honest, I've forgotten how much we've got up here. Not very much. We've got a few things that we've loaded up on the drive that we can look at on any of our devices. And you can open it up just as you would on any website. And that was the course for term 4 last year. So it can be useful now to have access to the drive. The final thing that is really useful, and I skipped over when I was on the iPad, is you can tell the iPad to send its location to the cloud. And on the web interface here is Find My iPhone. So we'll have a look and see where it wants me to sign in. And it's gone off looking to see where it thinks my iPad might be, or in this case, Akbal's iPad. Taken. Here we come. Wow. And for anyone who knows, it's just found it's sitting in my house, so that's not particularly surprising. But that could be useful if you've lost it, if you think you've left it somewhere. The iPad from time to time will send its location up to the web server, and it's stored there. If you lose it, or an iPhone, you can go back and find it. And I've told you about reminders. They also give you a couple of Mac apps, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote that you can use. And there's this one which is an interesting feature. You can go and find your friends if they have chosen to share their location with you. Mind you, if you find that they haven't chosen to tell you where they are and they're out meeting other friends, that could be perhaps a little embarrassing. Okay, I'll just stop the share and I'll be prepared to take some questions. So if you want to ask a question, it's okay, I will poll you. I notice Greg. Jeff, do you want to unmute yourself and ask me the question?
If you're wanting to store, you're going on holidays, you want to store all of the information like the tickets, numbers, the passports, but all the personal data and that sort of thing, it's secure. Would you store it in up in the cloud, do with photographs, or scan it and put it up in the cloud, or what would you do?
Yeah, I would be quite comfortable doing that. The one thing which I didn't mention on the way through, though, if I'm doing that, I work with what's known two-factor authentication. So to be able to log into iCloud, I have to not only provide my password, but I have to either have a code that's SMS'd out to me, or a code that I take from an application on my phone that no one else would have access to. And as long as you invoke two-factor authentication, then I'm comfortable with storing stuff in the cloud, because that significantly reduces the risk of you being hacked. And I would probably store those documents in iCloud Drive as a place to put them. Not as a photo, but in iCloud Drive, because it's tidier for documents.
Okay, thank you.
Drive.
Sherry.
Jim, with the iCloud keychain, for the passwords, you said you can pull them down. How do you do that?
The way keychain tends to work is that when you save a password for a website using keychain, when you come to that website, there's a little, I don't know if I've got it set up on this iPad, there's a little key comes up below where you're logging in, and you click on that and it lets you select the password and load it. And it does it behind your back almost. You don't even see the password, it just fills in the password field.
Okay, and for your passwords to go into keychain, you just have to open the iCloud keychain.
If you turned on keychain and say you're going to use keychain, when you log into a site, you get asked, would you like to save the password? And you say yes, and it saves it.
Oh,
and remember it from then on.
Okay.
I think that's better than lots of scraps of paper.
or in your notes.
Yes. Or having it in, yes, putting it in a file that someone could find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Christine.
I'll do that.
Jim, while you were doing the presentation there, thank you very much, I was trying to follow it on my older iPad, my mini iPad, and I couldn't actually get up the same screen that you had on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Maybe because it's an old one. I got into settings. I'm in settings with the list of all the applications on the left-hand side.
But you didn't.
And then you went into iCloud Drive.
You didn't have your picture at the top of the left-hand side?
No.
No. If you scroll down on the left-hand side, you'll find an entry that says iCloud.
I couldn't find that. That's what I was looking for.
It's on the left-hand side.
And it's all in alphabetical order.
It should be, I think. I've never really thought
No,
about that bit. No, it's not all in alphabetical order.
No, it's not. You're right.
Um,
I'm here. I don't have anything that says I. Is it because it's an old one?
It is. They have changed the information for iCloud.
It's the same on my iPhone. It's the same on my iPhone.
The same on your iPhone?
Which is a new one.
Let me just share the screen again.
I go into settings. It puts me automatically into general.
Ah, right. Okay.
And if I go back, I need to then go back, right, into settings.
So I'm going to share the iPad again. Right. So in all the new iClouds, whoops, yeah, get the right pointer. The iCloud information is accessed by going to this blue setting at the top, which is username. In the older ones, this entry used to be down there somewhere.
I found it.
Quite a while ago that it was down there.
Okay.
I don't have one to hand with that layout anymore.
It's okay, Jim. I've actually found it. You actually have to tap on the name as you tapped on Avalon Computer Files.
Yeah, that was the point.
Sorry, I must have missed that bit. So it's come up now, iCloud. Thank you.
No problem.
I thought it was something simple.
Very simple. Okay, stop to share. Gay, you've got a question.
Yes, Jim. In regards to security on your iPad and iPhone, when you predecease or before you predecease, what arrangements should you make so that your family will be able to gain access to all the photos that you have and the documents? What do you advise there for security? It's a tricky one. Gotcha.
He's gone away to search it.
I think I've tricked him. Now you need to pass on your password to access the iPad. But what are...
Greg's talking, but nothing, you can't hear him.
No. I'll mute myself.
Greg, are you talking to us? You're muted.
You're muted, mate.
Jim's we had a bit of trouble this morning, and he's just gone out, and he'll come back in. So we'll just have to wait a second or two.
I thought I upset him.
No,
It frazzed him.
Sue Martin's courses on legacy go through all that about your passwords and letting your family know what they are. But you certainly should your family know in some special way that, oh, here he comes back.
Legacy, which ones?
Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. I'd got Gay's question about people predeceasing us or dying. Yes, it's a good question. I don't know that I have that one fully under control. I'm actually using, my wife could get into my iPad, and I'm using a password manager to store all my passwords. And we are trying to get to the point where she is comfortable that she could use it as comfortably as I do and could find the stuff. I think that's my approach to it. That's why I quite like storing passwords electronically, because if I show my family where to go and find them, then we should be pretty safe. But I don't know that it's a perfect solution.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim, if people want to go into some of the previous presentations that Sue Martin's done by going to avpals.com, and I know Sue Martin has spent a bit of time talking about giving access to your family in case that you're incapable of doing so.
Yeah. Gareth,
Good.
question or a statement?
No, just a quick one. Where do you get your little red pointer from?
Oh, I get it by plugging in. If you've got a new enough iPad, you can plug in a mouse.
Okay.
And then set. I'll send you the settings if you want to know.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I was just curious. I don't even own an iPad, but just in case anyone ever asks me, I want to know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have an adapter that lets me connect USB devices, which I used to get photos in the past.
Yep.
And in the latest release of iPad software, they allow you to connect a mouse to that connector. And once you've connected the mouse, you get a pointer. And you can play around with the color and other things. Jeff?
Seeing as we're into bonus buys, any chance of finding out how to do that picture behind you? The like Greg's, like
Yeah.
Gerd's, I mean, and Ron's, or John.
It's just changing your background, Jim.
Yeah, yeah. If you look on where it says stop and start video, there's a little up arrow behind it. I can only describe what's happening on a PC. It's the same on a Mac.
Oh, yeah, share, stop video, yep.
Well, if you hit the little up arrow beside that, it has choose virtual background.
Ah, thank you.
And if I choose the virtual background, which I will for a second, you'll find that I disappear because it just can't quite process me and do the picture at the same time, unfortunately.
And I've just killed mine.
Sorry, what was that?
I've
Yeah,
just killed my virtual background.
yeah. So
And Cherie's put one up. Yeah.
if you have a PC with enough grunt, which unfortunately this little old PC I'm using doesn't, then it will do what Sherry and who else? John have virtual backgrounds up at the moment, and Ron. But if you don't have enough grunt, then it won't work very well, and you'll get that funny effect that you got of half my head and something in the background. But easy enough to experiment with. Ron?
You can go into your own photos, can you, and get them somehow?
Yes, you can go and pick from your own photos.
That's the bit I can't work out. Anyway.
Oh, that's the bit you can't work out.
How do I get to there? General.
No, you go to that up there arrow where you choose the virtual background, the one which I just used,
Yes.
and on the right hand side, just below the picture, there's a plus which says add image.
Ah,
And
righto.
if you go to that, it will go and have a look in your PC and you can scroll around looking at it. I can't share the screen to show you because it gets into a bit of a loop, but it's trying to show me what I'm doing at the same time as it's showing you. It gets a bit confused.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Ron?
Oh,
Okay, Jim, once upon a time, I had my iPad connected to my PC with iTunes, and it offered me to sync the iPad with the computer. I now want to change that when I get around to it so that my iPhone and iPad are synced together, so that when you delete a text message or whatever, it's deleting it off both devices. Is that going to be through the cloud or is it across my own Wi-Fi? Presuming that's what happened when I synced the PC with the iPad.
Just to make sure I'm answering the right question, you now got the iPhone and the iPad synced so that you see messages in both.
No, I don't. They're not synced. The iPad's synced to a PC. So all my contacts came off my PC into my iPad. I want to change that so that the iPad and iPhone are synced to each other. So that I'm getting that working, not from the computer. Is that going to be through the iCloud or is it just across my Wi-Fi?
Yeah. No, it's going to be through iCloud. And what you would be doing is what I suggested, moving to backup to iCloud. You're moving to iCloud backup in the setting I showed you. And when you go to iCloud backup, it will disable backup to PC.
Okay, all right. Let's have backup.
And once you do that, set messages to sync, and then the messages will go between the two.
Thank you, Jim.
John, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. My question is perhaps related to Ron's question. On my laptop, my Windows laptop, I have a folder called iCloud Photos. And up to about a year ago, whenever I took a photo with my phone or iPad, it would automatically appear in the iCloud Photos folder on my laptop. For some reason, about a year ago, that stopped happening. And I would like to reinstate it somehow if I could.
Well, that's still a possibility. There's still an iCloud for Windows app. My first step, John, would be to uninstall and reinstall iCloud for Windows so that you've got an up-to-date version. And make sure that you're using iCloud Photos because that's the route through which it will now work.
Thank you, Jim.
That's what I would be trying as the first step.
Thank you.
Is your iPhone a particularly old iPhone?
No, it's about 2 years old. It's an
No, well, that's current. You'll have current software.
Mm.
Yeah, that does work. I've tested that. I don't use it much because my primary PC now is a Mac, so I don't have to go through the Windows route.
Mm.
But I have used it, I've checked it, and it does seem to work quite well.
Mm. Thank you.
Yes, Gay.
At what stage, at what point does your iPad become considered old? How many years?
I consider old when you stop getting the latest software updated.
Right.
And that's about, I did some research when I bought an iPhone a couple of years ago, and you seemed able to guarantee pretty much to get 5 years of updates from Apple, which is about twice the time that you get an Android phone updated. And if you can keep it 5 years, that makes it just as cost effective as buying an Android. So
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, with the virtual background, sorry to go back to that, I couldn't work out where to find the arrow to click on.
What device are you using? PC?
I'm using a PC.
Yeah.
It's a laptop.
Yep, that's fine. Can you see the stop video symbol in the bottom left-hand corner? You might have to move your mouse. Mine disappears if I'm not doing much.
Oh, everything disappears if I'm... Stop video. Yes.
Besides stop video, there's a little up arrow.
Right. Use that one.
That's the one.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Jim. That was a great presentation. Before we go, Gerd is here.